So today on Calvin's Garage, you can see that I'm super hyperactive, and if I'm not lazy, I'll put in a bunch of jump cuts between every single word, so it's as fast paced as possible. So I occasionally like to parody other types of content on other channels, and today I'm going to be filming my reaction to, these are videos of me shifting my truck. So my truck has a manual transmission. It is a 5-speed manual transmission with a 2-speed transfer case, and first gear has no synchronizers. The other gears all are supposed to have synchronizers, although the quality of the synchronizers has deteriorated over time to where for certain gears they are basically non-existent. So whenever I do shift this truck, I do double clutch it. It is similar to driving a semi-truck, and it was quite the learning experience for me, and so we're going to see some of the struggles and wins that I faced along the way. Okay, so we're just starting out, and this is like my second time driving the truck, so let's see how I'm doing. Stalled it. Okay. Now we're in gear, now we're cooking. Everything's good.
Woo! Can I honk the horn?
Still not quite right. Our shifting when the RPMs are way too low. Here it's better, there's no crunching, no grinding, but the RPMs are still too low. The engine is bogging down when I'm trying to shift because I'm shifting it way too low of RPMs. Of course, there is no tachometer. You can see right here again, I almost stall out because I am not shifting at the right RPMs. To understand what went wrong when I was shifting my truck, you have to first understand how power is delivered from the engine to the wheels. That is through the drivetrain. There are different components to the drivetrain. The transmission, the drive shaft, not pictured here, but there are also the axles, and eventually it gets to, that's eventually how power is distributed to the tires. Let me know if you would like a more in-depth explanation on how each of these drivetrain components work, but for this I'm going to give you a very simple overview. The engine is what provides that power. It provides torque, or turning force, turning ability. So the engine turns the crankshaft, and that is what provides power. That power has to be distributed to the wheels. Now, you could hook the engine up directly to a wheel, but that wouldn't be super useful because the engine spins at a very specific range of RPMs. Typical engine idles at around 1500 RPM, and then the engine max RPM, it depends on the particular engine, but let's say that the maximum RPM is 7,000. Now, of course, functionally in your car, you never want to reach 7,000. That's more of a theoretical limit. So really, we want to say about 4,000. So that is your working RPM range. That's revolutions per minute. So if you were to hook it directly to your tires, that would mean your tires would be spinning 1,500 to 4,000 revolutions per minute. Now, based on the size of the tire, you could calculate out exactly how fast that would be, but that would be way too fast. And the other thing is, the engine is more efficient at certain RPMs. Typically, the torque is better at lower RPM, but then horsepower is increased at higher RPM. Now let me know if you want a video explaining that more, but basically what you need to know is you can't just hook the engine directly to your tires and expect to go anywhere reliably and be able to control your speed the entire time. So that's where the transmission comes in. The transmission contains gears, similar to gears on a bicycle. That's the easiest way to think about it. So you have the driven gear, which is attached to the pedals, so that when you're pedaling your bike, that is turning. And then you have on this side, you have a gear that's attached to the back tire of your bicycle. And of course these are connected by a chain. Because these gears are different sizes, but they're linked together by the chain, that means they'll move at different RPMs. So this one, if you do one full rotation of this gear right here, if you take the circumference of that and map it onto this gear, you would only be turning about that far, about 1/3. So you do another rotation of this gear, it would turn it another third, and then another rotation of this gear turns it another third. So in order to get one full rotation of this gear, you have to do 3 rotations of this gear. So this gear ratio is 3:1. The transmission works slightly differently than bicycle gears. However, it's the same general idea. It uses gears to change the speed at which the output, the drive shaft, is turning based on the input RPMs. Let me know if you would like a video going in depth on gear ratios, how they work, how differential gear ratios can affect things like top speed, acceleration, how different gearing in the transmission can affect things like how you are able to put the power down, whether you're better at towing, crawling, rock crawling, or whether you're better at high speeds, better at acceleration, all the things like that. So for a manual transmission, power enters through the input shaft of the transmission, and it has to pass through the clutch. If the clutch is engaged, if the clutch is engaged, then the input shaft of the transmission is directly attached to the flywheel of the engine. This means that however fast the engine turns is how fast this rod right here turns. This rod has gears that are different sizes, and there is a rod attached to the output shaft of the transmission, which also has gears of different sizes. And depending on how the gears are connected, which can be changed based on what speed the transmission is in, that determines the ratio and how fast the output shaft spins compared to the input shaft. In modern standard transmissions that are in things other than semi-trucks, they have these things called synchronizers, which help to mesh the gears together so that you don't have to worry about what speed the input shaft and output shaft are going when you're changing gears. It'll just slip into gear automatically. However, in older transmissions, transmissions where the synchronizers are worn down, or in transmissions in large trucks that don't have synchronizers, you need to match the speed of the input shaft to the speed of the output shaft when you're changing gears, otherwise you will grind gears. And grinding gears, it makes a very bad sound, and also wears down your gears over time, and then your transmission will go out. How this is done is a technique called double clutching. And despite what you hear in Fast and Furious,
granny shifting, not double clutching like you should,
it is a technique that is used mainly by truck drivers, not race car drivers. The basic idea of double clutching is you need to match the speed of the input shaft to the speed of the output shaft every time you go to shift. Yep. Grinding gears, RPM's too low. Okay, here we go. shift, no bogging down. Come on, can I do it? So that one, the RPMs were a little low, but yeah, that still managed to shift, so... Missed it. I think I might have went into fourth. There we go. And that's a successful 2-3 shift. So I'm in first gear. That is a good shift. A little low down, and now you can see it's bogging down, and it's really bad because I'm coming up to a hill, but somehow I made it over. Maybe a little bit of grinding there, but overall good shift. That was an excellent shift. The only noise you heard was the tailgate rattling. That is the only noise you should hear. No grinding gears. You can see I've gotten a lot better over the years. This is about 2 years after I got the truck. That's the 3-4 shift.
Let me guess, we're in 4-wheel drive.
Okay.
This is Allison. I don't know.
I kinda got distracted here, and I didn't downshift when I should have. So you can hear the engine starting to bog down. I really should downshift at this point. And when I do try to downshift, by that point I'm already going way too slow for the gear that I go into. I didn't downshift enough. And so then I try and just power through, and I stall out. Oh, I stalled it.
You have to jump the sucker.
No, I don't have to jump the sucker. It's just the RPMs get way too low for the gear that it was in, and the truck needed to restart. I was able to restart it on the hill, get in first gear, and go up the hill. And I know that, I am definitely not experienced enough to try to shift on the hill, so I wait till I'm at the top, and then shift, and I do a successful upshift into second gear. There's the successful 2-3 shift.
I didn't take, on the way up through, I didn't take it much above 30, 35.
So you didn't go through here?
I went into fourth a couple times, but...
There's the 3-4. A little bit of grinding, not my best work, but I'm more familiar with the 1-2 and 2-3 shift. I mostly go low speed around the farm.
The
major pitfall when it comes to my truck when you're trying to upshift is, especially because you don't have a tachometer, you aren't quite sure when exactly is a good time to shift. So if you're inexperienced with the truck and you try to shift too early while you're trying to do the double clutch, your truck is slowing down, and it can slow down to the point where when you finally get it into second gear, your output shaft is turning too slowly, which means everything is turning too slowly. The RPMs drop way down, your engine bogs, and it could stall out. This was a mistake that I made a lot in the video here. Now, of course, I got a lot better with it, and I got a lot better at double clutching as well, so you don't hear that grinding of the gears. So double clutch upshifting is fairly straightforward, it's fairly easy. Now, double clutch downshifting is a different story. That is the hard part, and that is where many people make mistakes when they are first learning how to drive large trucks.
Because there's
Okay, that was a downshift, and then that's a downshift way too high RPM on that second downshift. So I got the 4.3,
Okay, yeah,
and then
now I'm
3.2
really scared.
is where I messed up.
You know why
I
I say that?
shifted way
I
too
think we're
early
gonna hit
on the
the sun.
2.3 downshift.
No, we're not.
RPMs went to the moon
scared.
and it backfired, and that is what blew the head gasket. Okay, 1-2 upshift. You hear some linkage there, and maybe it bogged down a little bit, but overall it stayed moving, and that's good. Okay, here's that other footage of that 3-2 downshift. So I shift. Okay, let's walk this footage back. So you can see I start hitting the brakes on this hill. At this point, I am in 4th gear, which I know is way too high. I probably should have downshifted before this, but I hit the brakes, let off, hit the brakes. I get the 4-3 shift, downshift, good. And then I am slowing down with the engine braking. I'm slowing down with the engine braking through here. And then I hit the brakes again and try to prepare for that 3-2 downshift. And I get a little scared because I know the corner is coming up right there and it's a downhill to a 3-way stop. And then I shift and bang.
So with that explanation of how shifting works in my truck, what happened on this shift? To make up for the fact that my truck doesn't have a tachometer where you can see the RPM of the engine, usually those have a red line to indicate the maximum RPM for the engine. My truck has a posted warning sign, and this is spelled out in the manual as well, that are top speeds for shifting. And it tells you for every gear of the transmission there is a maximum speed that you should not go past under any circumstances. The reason for that is if you're in that gear and you're going above that speed, the engine is going to be above its red line value. Now for second gear with the transmission in high range, the top speed is 14 miles per hour. This means you should not be going above 14 miles an hour whenever you are in second gear. This is true for the upshifting, so as you are going through the gears, as you're speeding up, once you hit 14 miles an hour, you should immediately shift into from second gear into third gear if you want to continue accelerating. This is also true for downshifting. You should not shift into second gear until the truck is going below 14 miles an hour. And there's the problem right there. So third gear has a max speed of 25 miles an hour. I was traveling about 25 miles an hour when I shifted from fourth gear to third gear, which is why that fourth third shift went so smoothly, is because I was underneath the maximum RPM for that shift. I allowed the truck to slow down on its own, a technique called engine braking, for a little while, and then I hit the brakes again and I was preparing to shift into second gear. Now I knew I had a stop sign coming up that was down a hill, and I was definitely feeling kind of nervous about that. And so what happened is I shifted too early. I can't tell you the exact speed that I was going because I didn't have a camera looking at my speedometer at the time, but I would estimate that I shifted right around 18 to 20 miles an hour. So when I went from third gear to second gear, I was traveling 18 to 20 miles per hour. As you can see, that is above that maximum of 14. So what happens when you shift and you're going too fast? Well, the RPMs rise and go above the red line value, and that is very hard on an engine. Engines are designed to operate within a very specific range of RPM. When they go above that, they can have problems such as oil starvation. The pistons and rods can actually seize up. You can have bearings fail. You can have things come loose. In fact, going above the designated red line RPM is actually a good way to put a hole through an engine block using a connecting rod. There are plenty of videos out there on YouTube of engines catastrophically self-destructing when the RPMs get too high. So I would consider myself fairly lucky that none of that happened. The worst that I got was a loud backfire, which happens at high RPMs because there's too much fuel and air, and the engine doesn't have enough time to fully combust in the chamber because the piston is moving up and down so fast. So it ends up combusting down in the exhaust. So we got the backfire, and we also got a hole in the head gasket between the second and third cylinder. First, second, third, I don't know. We got a hole in the head gasket, and once we cleaned up the block, or cleaned up the cylinder head, we realized that in the exact same place where there was a chunk missing from the head gasket, there was also a crack in the head. So if you've learned anything today, make sure you are familiar with your vehicle, make sure you understand the maximum speeds and or the maximum RPM for your vehicle, and you understand and you practice how to shift your vehicle properly. Otherwise, you'll end up with problems. This also, I hope, has been an interesting explanation of why my truck has been so unreliable lately. A lot of these problems, yeah, some of them are just maintenance items catching up to me, like the brakes, that it was only a matter of time before they gave out and I was going to have to work on them anyway. I've been neglecting them for long enough. However, as far as the head gasket, the head gasket replacement, head replacement, the exhaust manifold cracks, all of the other issues, the spark plugs that were fouled and stuck inside the cylinder head, a lot of these problems are of my own making. It is my own fault for shifting at too high of a speed, too high of an RPM.
So if you've made it this far in the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and get this video to 10,000 likes, and we'll do this. We'll react to some more of this content. Yeah. Okay, I'm done. That's enough.